Hi everyone, today our group will be discussing and presenting the movie Encanto by Disney for Speech 1318. Our controlling purpose will be to discuss on how the Madrigal family underwent a battle of miscommunication. There are three main reasons for this, which includes the role of Alma Madrigal as the grandmother, the significance of Bruno isolation, and the third one will be Maribel's character development due to confrontation. Alma Madrigal abused her power, which led to failed uniformity and communication with her loved ones. The conflict was resolved through Maribel's intervention.
Alma Madrigal is the grandmother and matriarch of the Madrigal family. She is considered the main antagonist of the movie. She is responsible of upholding both the miracle and the family's reputation. She was in love with her ex-husband Pedro, who was killed from invaders of their town. She prayed for a miracle right after the death of her husband, and she was granted a special power that protected her family, Julieta, Pepa, and Bruno. Since she is the originator of the miracle, she underwent an extreme amount of stress to fulfill the role of responsibility, which turned her into a serious and bitter woman. In Looking Out, Chapter 10, page 320, family communication is role-driven. As children grow, they are labeled by other family members. Once these labels exist, they tend to create the kind of self-fulfilling prophecies described in Chapter 2. The effects of these labeling can plague families for decades. This is evident when Alma scolded and pushed Maribel away for Bruno's disappearance when Maribel was not granted a magical gift after ceremony.
The effects of favoritism and unattainable standards can be disastrous for one's own mental image and mental health. Encanto presents this in a key way throughout the entire film. According to the Family Systems Institute, families as an entire unit can feel each other's individual problems. Dr. Bowen Murray's theorem presents that the challenges of being human can affect the overall health of a family unit. A great example would be Maribel's place or image of herself between her sisters, mainly Isabel, who is presented to be perfect throughout the entire film. Referencing back to chapter 1 of the text, everybody has identity needs. You have identity needs, I have identity needs. And as we are born into the world, we need to develop this. And as a girl, she failed to receive her gift, which created a self-fulfilling prophecy that she will never truly amount to everything, especially in the eyes of her grandmother, who always expects so much from her sisters. Maribel wants to be helpful and to be a key part of her community, just like her sisters, but through her grandmother's expectations and such high standards, she can never really get there, which is a disaster to her overall state in the family.
Bruno is depicted in the movie as the black sheep of the family. Being the youngest of a Wallace triplets, his gift of predicting the future seems unimpressive in comparison to the other gifts, because he always ended up hurting people. As a result, his family often expressed their disappointment. He is depicted as an evil person through the movie, since terrible things happen when he uses his powers. Midway through the movie, the song entitled "We Don't Talk About Bruno" is where we discover the events leading to his disappearance. The lyrics state, "Your fate is sealed when your prophecy is read." The townspeople demonstrate a similar way of thinking as Schrodinger's cat, which is a hypothetical concept that suggests, in Bruno's case, that if he never read the prophecies, they likely would not have still come true. Bruno's circumstances are largely due to a lack of conversation orientation, which means the degree to which families create a communication climate in which all family members are encouraged to participate in unrestrained interaction about a variety of topics. The whole family was taught to always serve the community in order to earn the miracle that somehow found us, as Alma sang in the song entitled "The Family Madrigal." The limited exposure to life's many nuances caused a strain on the family as a whole. This fact, along with Bruno's powers causing further distress in the community, made him feel it was best to remove himself from the equation in an effort to keep the town's peace.
Hi, my name is Karen Owen. I'll be going over Chapter 5 and Chapter 6. Chapter 5 is generational trauma, and 6 is self-consciousness and being able to understand that you are your own person. So going into Chapter 5, we see a lot of things that relate back to not only the family, but the fact that a lot of this generational trauma is due to the fact that the grandma couldn't deal with her own trauma to begin with. And this happens because, one, she had to flee her own country, go to another, and then her husband died in the process. So that's something that's really going to bring a big pin into this. And because of this, she suppressed all her emotions and pretty much put unrealistic expectations onto her own kids. And in doing so, it caused them to believe that they were never perfect or could do anything. And because of this, it led to Maribel finally understanding, after she had a talk with Bruno, her uncle, who had the worst part of this, and then to some of her other family members, just to understand why she wasn't being accepted as well. So in this, after that, we see a lot of self-consciousness that isn't there. Self-consciousness is just understanding that no matter what anybody else thinks about you, you have to have your own state of mind, that you are your own person, and being your own person is what makes you amazing. We see this throughout every different song. It starts off with Luisa. She kind of just explains that she feels like she doesn't know who she is without being perfect to her grandma. We see it throughout Pepa. She can never show her emotions unless they are deemed correct and appropriate for her grandma. And we see this a lot through Isabella. She is meant to be the perfect golden child. And in doing so, she figures that she hates her life and she wishes she was more like Maribel, her sister with no powers at all, who wishes she was like her. She says, I'm never allowed to have my own creativity and I can never do what I want. So within this, I mean, pretty much we're just talking about how one generational trauma does cause a lot of mental health to other people, and how if you are not a strong individual yourself, it's gonna cause more pain unless you confront it.
Once Maribel conquered her inferiority complex, she truly recognized her ability as a mediator. However, not only did she mediate, she resolved. Maribel fixed casita and left her mark. Both the door and house are symbolic of something far more than what meets the eye. The house represented the state of the family's relationship. When it was cracked and fell apart, the family did too. Furthermore, the entire community admired the home of the Madrigals because it was a place of celebration, tradition, and security. When that collapsed, so did the people and their fascination. Not everything is all magic and sparkles, hence why Maribel had to have that epiphany of self-worth in the first place. This shift established a positive change in communication, and Bruno took on a new perspective to his family. Finally, he was no longer cursed or abnormal. He was family. Ultimately, the role of the grandmother, the significance of Bruno's isolation, and Maribel's character development all tied into the Madrigals' interpersonal communication. It is sad to see similar events such as the ones that happen in Encanto occur in our very own households. It is this realistic cinematic experience that makes this charming musical so relevant. Living in a border city, we know how hard it is to deal with Hispanic parents, customs, and beliefs. This includes, but is not limited to, religious, political, and hereditary standards. Sometimes we have to be like Maribel and make our own miracle, or else we won't ever be able to realize how much we really needed it. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed our presentation.